Welcome to Neo Royal, House of Pricey Cardboard. On today's episode, we are back with some paper commander gameplay. Crazy, right? Thank you to the Patreons of the channel who make it possible for us to continue improving our content and pay for some of the expenses of the channel. Our fighters of the day will be me, Kelly, and our friends Raphael and Hugo. Hugo brought one of his pet decks that has not been on the channel since episode 5, Etali the Primal Storm. Hugo will be looking to ramp a lot in the early game and ideally cast his commander with haste to limit the window where we can interact. Etali being a big source of card advantage, he can jam a lot more ramps than you would in a regular deck without getting flooded. This also helps recasting Etali multiple times when it gets removed. He of course runs a couple of bombs of his own if our top card can't close the game. Raph will be playing his Sisay Weatherlight Captain. This deck is running a lot of legendary hatebears to slow down the pace of the table and allow Sisay's tutoring ability to take over and cheat out big legendaries like angels or praetors. Having access to a lot of silver bullets in the deck makes for a very interesting control matchup. Kelly will be playing Kruphix, God of Horizon. This is a simic value deck looking to ramp and draw into the biggest creatures in the game, Eldrazi's. Taking control turns off in Kruphix is never really a problem because you just get your mana next turn. Finally, as last week, I will be playing Kumena, Tyrant of Orazca. This Merfolk tribal list is looking to get a massive board that can draw cards and pump themselves through the commander and close the game with unblockable combat damage. I do not run Intruder Alarm in this list, but as you will see in the episode, there's enough synergy for some real explosive turns. Little disclaimer before we start, there's a couple of misplays during the match as we get really complex board states and interactions, but in the end none of them really impact the ending. Raph's opening hand contains Ep.56 the Lost, Kunoro's Hound of Atrios, Sylvan Caryatid, Flooded Strand, Steam Vents, and a basic forest. Hugo's opening hand contains Dragon Mage, Scroll Rack, Helm of the Host, Commander Sphere, and 3 basic mountains. Kelly's opening hand contains Seaborn Muse, Heroic Intervention, Crook of Condemnation, Interland Arbor, Yavimayakos, Waterrock Grove, and a basic forest. My opening hand contains Kiora's Follower, Herald of Sacred Streams, Sea Hunter, Soul Ring, Simic Growth Chamber, Breeding Pool, and a basic island. Raph gets to start this off, and land drops a Flooded Strand, cracking it for a Zagot Tryon. Kelly land drops a forest, and I land drop an island. I cast the classic turn 1 Soul Ring. Hugo land drops a mountain and pass. Raph land drops a forest, and casts Sylvan Caryatid. Kelly land drops Interland Arbor, using it to cast Farseek, searching for Rimwood Falls. I land drop a Breeding Pool untapped, and cast Kiora's Follower. I follow it up with a Dowsing Dagger. I give the defenders to Raph and pass. Hugo land drops a mountain and casts Scroll Rack. Raph casts Ep.56 the Lost. Entering the battlefield, he draws a card. He then land drops Steam Vents tapped, shipping the turn to Kelly. Kelly land drops Yavimayakos and casts Crook of Condemnation. On my turn, I equip the dagger to the follower.
Allez, on combat!
Non, je vais manger.
4!
Je vais manger 4.
C'est même pas du steak. Oh, mais t'as commencé, je vais manger 4! Go!
I go to combat, sending the follower to Hugo. Upon dealing damage, my dagger transforms into Lost Veil. In second main, I cast Sea Hunter. I land drop a Simic Growth Chamber, returning a basic to hand, and end my turn. Hugo land drops a mountain, and casts Commander Sphere. Raph land drops Minamo, School at Water's Edge. He then casts Dranit Magistrate, followed by Heuristic Study, 2 cards you just wish to see on your opponent's board. Kelly uses this time to exile the land from Raph's graveyard. Going to combat, Ep.56 attack Kelly for 1. Kelly land drops a forest and pass. I land drop an island and activate my Sea Hunter. I put to board a Surge Spanner. I then cast Herald of Sacred Streams, and head into combat, sending the follower to Hugo again. At my end step, Hugo activates Scroll Rack. He then, on his turn, land drops a mountain, before casting his own Soul Ring and a Library of Lang. Raph land drops Stamping Ground untapped. He then casts his commander, Sisay Weatherlight Captain.
I know just the guy.
For his combat step, Dranit and Fibbletit attack Hugo. Kelly then drops Waterlog Grove, before casting AC, Tyrant of Gyre Strait. She does not have a second land to play, and pass. On my turn, I go straight to combat, sending the Herald and Surge Spanner to Hugo. Upon tapping the Merfolk, I pay 2 mana to bounce the Magistrate to hand. Hugo then takes 4. In second main, I activate the Sea Hunter for Tetiova, Benthic Druid.
No, par exemple.
I land up a Yavimaya Coast, triggering Tetiova for a card and a life. I then cast my commander, Kumena, Tyrant of Orazca.
The same power that drives the river ever onward flows through the roots and branches. To me.
Ah, là, j'ai une seule carte de mon style. Tant mieux! C'est une carte blanche. T'as pas de carte.
I untap my Lost Veil with the follower, and cast Silvergill Adept, revealing a Merfolk on ETB and drawing a card. At my end step, Hugo uses Scroll Rack. On his turn, he then drops a mountain before casting Dragon Mage. He then passes. Raph casts Anafinza the Foremost and ships the turn to Kelly. She then drops Eye of Ugin and casts her commander, Kruphix, God of Horizon.
Knowledge is cruel. It will break your heart and test your allegiance. Are you certain you want this curse?
Card drawn with restricted so far. 0.
But once it's because you're a moron.
I then drop an island, drawing a card. I cast Sage of Fables, and then activate Sea Hunter, searching my deck for Mero Commerce. I cast Lord of Atlantis, and it enters with a +1/+1 because of Sage of Fables. Not quite done, I untap the Lost Veil with the follower, and cast Forerunner of the Heralds. Entering the battlefield, I get to put Mero Ridgery on top of my deck. I tap 5 Merfolks to put a +1/+1 on all of them, and then hop into combat, sending Kumena to Raph, while the Heralds and Surge Spanner go to Kelly. At my end step, I untap all my Merfolks with the Commerce. Hugo untaps and starts with combat.
Ce que je fais l'affaire, c'est que je fais une clause de vie, mais je sens que je vais manger le tabarnak de voler si je le swing. Mais si tu le fais, c'est pas nous autres, moi je la volée. Fait que je veux dire, moi je suis d'accord que tu fais ça. Oh ouais, mais. C'est lui qui a le plus gros board, pis.
C'est lui qui, en ce moment, il fait peur.
Pis il peut tout taper ses poissons pour mettre au moins un autre counter. Fait que peut-être qu'il peut me tuer au prochain tour si je le swing. Fait que il peut ça vraiment. Fait que Raph va le chier.
The Dragon Mage attacks Raph. Upon dealing damage, we wheel our hand, exiling our creatures because of an Anafinza. Because of the resolution of the wheel, Raph forgot to take the 5 damage. It does not impact the end of the game, but it will mess up some dethroned triggers in the future. In second main, Hugo casts Otepec Hunt Master. He then casts Scourge of the Throne, the dethroned card in question. Raph finally draws his first card through Rhystic Study. We go to Raph's turn, where he casts Mox Ember. He then land drops a Plains and casts Alesha, who smiles at death, passing with 5 mana up. Kelly land drops a Commander Tower and an Eldrazi Temple, drawing for each.
C'est la première fois que je le joue! Je vais avoir une réaction! Pas de tendance à ce qui se passe.
Il réagit.
Je vais piger une carte.
Moi, je m'appelle, tu réagis à mon. C'est juste ça ta réaction.
Je vais piger une carte. T'avais un gros rush avec la distraction?
Ah,
Je vais piger une carte.
Philippe, tu as exactement 1-0 mana.
Ben ça peut faire 3 mana si je le tape.
Ah, right, yeah.
C'est tout. J'ai gagné top.
After my failed attempt at interaction, Raph activates Sisay. He puts to board Azor the Lawbringer. Entering the battlefield, Azor shuts down our instants and sorceries during our own next turn. Ugin resolves in Kelly -4, absolutely ruining my whole career. I make a misplay here and exile my Tetiova with the rest. Adding salt to injury, AC attacks me. On my turn, I land drops Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, and cast Reflections of Littjara, a new card in the deck. I cast Mero Regery, getting a token copy, which is very strong in case you didn't know. I then cast Wade Thrasher, On cast, I get 2 untapped triggers, untapping my Lost Veil twice. I also get a second Wake Thrasher token. After that, I cast Thrasios, Triton Hero, sacrificing the token to the legendary rule.
Ah, c'est vraiment con ton affaire là.
I cast Mist Caller. I now use my Regery to untap Nykthos instead of Lost Veil because it taps for more than 3. Look at me, playing Merfolk Storm. I cast Blackblade Reforged, and then recast Kumena. I cast Fallow Sage. After that, I tap 5 Merfolks to put a +1/+1 counter on my whole team. I also draw 2 through the Fallow Sages. I then tap 3 Merfolks to draw a card, and cast Mana Refractor. Activate Thrasios, bottoming.
Il y a 5 lands sur le top de mon deck!
I activate Thrasios 3 more times and equip the Blackblade to Kumena. Realizing that Ugin will still be able to -3 on Kelly's turn as I don't have haste, I discard to end size and pass. Hugo then drops Ghost Quarter. He then casts his commander, Etali, Primal Storm. Just to be sure we get the message, he casts Helm of the Host. He then goes to combat, sending the Scourge to me. The Scourge triggers for a +1/+1 counter and an extra combat step upon dealing damage, which he also sends to me, not getting the +1/+1 this time. I tried to politic with Kelly to not minus Ugin, but to no avail. Raph then drops a mountain. He then casts Gisela the Broken Blade, following up with a Chromatic Lantern and passing. On her turn, Kelly then drops 2 forests and draws. She then -3 Ugin, destroying my Storm engine. She casts the Great Henge, and follows it up with Llanowar Elves and Priest of Titania, drawing for both. She continues with Victory Chimes, and then Tassa, God of the Sea, passing the turn to me. I then drop a Command Tower and cast Vanquisher's Banner. I cast Kazam Skulker, which Hugo is fast to call out as not a merfolk. I cast Rishkar's Expertise, drawing 4 cards. Living the Dream, I get to cast Barrel's Expertise for free, targeting Kruphix, AC, and Etali. I then get to cast Quicksilver Fountain for free.
Quicksilver Fountain. Il y a pas qui est une de vos lands qui est Nile.
Non! Oui!
For my combat, I send 2 Fallow Sages to Kelly, drawing 2 cards upon tapping my merfolks. Hugo turns Ghost Quarter into an island at his upkeep. He recasts Etali and then equips the Helm to it. At the beginning of combat, Helm of the Host triggers, creating a hasty, non-legendary Etali. The Scourge and the token Etali attack Raph. On attack, the Scourge gains a counter and Etali exiles our top card. Curse of the Swine remains in exile, and Hugo casts Fell Warstone, Gerard Weatherlight Hero, and Sylvan Library. Raph then blocks the Scourge with Gisela and takes 6. At his upkeep, Raph turns Minamo into an island. He then drops a Watery Grave untapped, and recasts Sisay. He then passes. Kelly turns our Painland into an island, making my editing ever so slightly easier. She casts Vidalcan Orrery and pass with the power of Flash. I turn my own Painland into an island, and then drops a forest.
T'as eu le problème toute la game, faut bien que ça change un peu.
Après 2 full board white, non, je te garantis que c'est un peu moins fait que c'est un coup. Ok.
T'as encore une 8
Ben,
sur la table?
Je vais quand même être dérangeant. Pour vrai, je t'accepte.
Oh, je suis pas surpris. Bon.
I cast Deep Root Water, and then Deep Root Elite. On cast, I get a 1/1 token. Then the token Elite enters the battlefield, and then the real Elite enters. The last one will trigger the token Elite, putting a +1/+1 on my 1/1 Hexproof, as it was the simplest pick. I also draw from the banner on cast. After that, I recast my commander, drawing a card and creating both a Kumena token and a 1/1 token. The real Kumena will then ETB, and I sacrifice the token version to the legendary rule. I get 6 elite triggers, and I put 2 on my Fallow Sages, 2 on my elites, and finally 2 on Kumena. Going to combat, the token Fallow Sage goes to Kelly. Reacting to attackers, Kelly casts Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. On cast, she destroys the Helm of the Host. I draw a card for the Fallow Sage being tapped, and it then gets blocked. I pass. Hugo gets another free island. He chooses to take 8, keeping all 3 cards from Sylvan Library. He casts Kikijiki Mirror Breaker. After that, he casts Trionic Resonator. I have a reaction this time, casting Mystic Confluence, choosing the modes to counter unless Hugo pays 3 and to bounce both Etalis. Hugo reacts by activating Kikijiki to create a token copy of the token copy of Etali. He pays 3 mana and returns 2 Etalis to hand. He then heads into combat, sending the Scourge and Etali to Raph. On attack, Dethrone and Etali trigger. Hugo holds priority to copy the trigger with the Resonator. Raph reacts to all of this by activating Sisay. He gets Lavinia Azorius Renegade to the battlefield, which will counter any spell that Hugo could cast for free with Etali. Hugo just leaves them in exile, with honorable mention to my Seedborn Muse and Kelly's Wilderness Reclamation. Raph then blocks with Azor and takes 6.
On a pas perdu!
At Raph's upkeep, he gets another island. He then drops Windswept Eve and crack it for Temple Garden tap. He then tries to pass, but at the end step, Kelly flashes in Kruphix, triggering the Great Henge for a draw. We then go to our turn, scrying 1 at the upkeep and turning another Painland into an island. She recasts AC, playing a Rejuvenating Springs and a Mossworth Bridge, drawing for both. She then hides away a card. We go to combat, and Kelly pays 2 into Tassa to make Ulamog unblockable, sending it to Hugo, getting an Annihilator 4 trigger. Making the best of a terrible situation, Hugo sacrifices his Commander Sphere for a draw, before sacrificing Kikijiki, Dragon Mage, Soul Ring, and Gerard. Gerard would then trigger and return the sacrificed permanent except itself. Hugo takes 11.
Pas des islands, par exemple.
C'est vrai?
Des blocs. Je pense que c'est des bloqueurs, mais.
Non, c'est ça, je connais pas cette mécanique-là. C'est un nouveau set.
Moi, je veux les faire boss à ce temps, ils font des bloqueurs. Qu'est-ce que c'est ça, Colis?
At the end step, I draw 2 cards by tapping Merfolks. I then drop Reliquary Tower and cast Jungleborn Pioneer, getting a drop and a 1/1 token on cast. I then get 2 Pioneer, which makes 2 more 1/1s on ETB, resulting in 10 elite triggers, which I all put on my commander. I cast Illusionist Bracers and Gilded Lotus. I then equip the Bracers to Kumena before tapping 3 1/1s to draw 2 cards. I then do it again with the Pioneers. After that, I cast Court of Calling for X equals 3. Raph thinks a bit about it and let it resolves. I get the last Island Walker in my deck, Master of the Pearl Trident. I put a counter on both my elites with their own triggers. Splitting the love, I send the elites to Raph, the Fallow Sage and Token Merfolk to Kelly, and Kumena to Hugo. Hugo draws a card with Commander Sphere before damage, but does not find his Red Elemental Blast. Kelly has a reaction as well, casting Eternal Witness. With the ETB, she returns Ugin to hand to my despair. Hugo is taken out and both Raph and Kelly takes 10. At the end step, Raph activates Sisay twice, getting Gaddocked first. Kelly would have a reaction, but we realized that Gaddock would not actually hit the stack, so he is already on board. This second Sisay activation then resolves for Saskia the Unyielding. Entering the battlefield, Raph names me.
Elle était behind, pis elle était pas c'est plus behind. Dude!
Ça serait si commandeur. Tu mets le
Oh,
chapeau.
là, tu y mets un guess, ça manque à point.
Tu mets le chapeau! Oh man!
We then go to Raph's turn, where he activates Sisay to get Rishkar, Pima Renegade. Entering battlefield, he puts a counter on Sisay and on Saskia. Now with 8 power, Raph activates Sisay another time. He searches for Bruna the Fading Light, before we remind him that it's actually a cast trigger. Kelly had a crook waiting anyway, so the Bristol Dream was not happening. Raph then tries and go to combat, but before he can, Kelly flashes in a Propaganda. We then go to the end step, where Kelly has a couple of actions. She casts Farseek, searching for Breeding Pool, and floats the rest into Kruphix. She begins her turn by casting Gorkla, Terror of Kalsisma. She then drops a Forest and a Rogue's Passage, drawing 2. After that, she casts Frontier Siege, naming Khans. She casts Thrasios, Triton Hero, and activates Tessa to make Ulamog and AC unblockable. She then goes to combat, taking Raph out of the game. In second main, the Siege adds 2 green mana to Kelly's pool.
Ah, ça, l'urgent, il a fait ça dans la tête.
Oh oh!
Ah, c'est mal.
C'est ça. Oh oh!
Ça c'est. Ah, en plus c'est Dice qui a un Skull Curse, quoi, lui.
Oh oh! J'ai plein de réponses, mais pas à ça.
She casts Ugin once more. I have a bunch of answers in hand, but none can interact with the Planeswalker. Kelly even gives me a window by activating Thrasios, but I have nothing. She then -3 Ugin, clearing once more the Merfolk nation. At the end step, I cast Resculpt on Kruphix. I then untap and have one last try at victory. I make myself another island.
This game's a mess. Je pense pas éviter ça de toute façon, c'est complexe en esti. C'est cool, mais c'est complexe.
I equip the Black Blade on my Fallow Sage and cast Overwhelming Stampede. Kelly reacts with Counter Spell, but I'm ready and react with Swan Song. The Stampede resolves, making my Merfolk into a 30-30 trample. Kelly has Hate Toughness on board to block and dies to a non-legendary Merfolk wielding the Black Blade. Well played. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I'm really happy that I was finally able to record paper gameplay and hope that my setup will last for a while. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to like the video as it helps a lot. Take care my friend, and we'll see you very soon with more Commander action.